So, that's what Achilles said. And he threw Lycaon's body in the water. And now the river was even more pissed off than ever in his heart, like so angry that he wanted to stop brilliant Achilles from all this work. And he wanted to defend the Trojans from this Loigos, which is some kind of deadly, destructive, baneful thing. The Loigos! That's what he wanted to protect them from. But meanwhile, Peleus' son Achilles, he came with his long shadow spear against Pelagon's son, Asteropaeus. Yeah, Pelagon's son. He was jumping at him now. He was just dying to kill him. You know who that is, Asteropaeus?
Not a...
Okay, so Asteropaeus, he comes from a family of rivers, from the Axios, right? And then the Axios, well, oh, wait, yep. The Axios had sex with Paraboia, who is Achaemenos' eldest daughter.
Damn.
That swirling river just had sex with her.
Wow.
Yep, and then had Pelagon. And Pelagon had Asteropaeus. So that's who brilliant Achilles was rushing towards now, because he was standing up in the river holding two spears.
Good to know.
Yeah, I know. And now the river Xanthos put a bunch of battle fury in Asteropaeus' heart because he was so pissed off. He was so pissed off about how many young men Achilles had killed in his swirling waters and had shown no pity at all. And as these two men came up close against one another, it was brilliant, fast-footed Achilles. He was the first to talk. So, who are you? Where'd you come from? You know, to stand up against me. Your battle fury against mine, you know, the kids who try to match their battle fury with me, their dads are not happy. So that's what he said. And then right away, Pelagon's shining son, Asteropaeus, answered and was like, son of Peleus, how are you going to ask me about my family? Huh? Alright, well, I come from Paeonia. It's far away, it's fertile. And I'm the leader of the long-speared Paeonians. And they say my family comes from the river Axios, the wide-flowing Axios, who just sends all of his most beautiful waters all over the world, all over the earth. Okay, and then he had spear famous Pelagon, and then they say that Pelagon's my dad. So come on, can we fight? Shining Achilles. So that's what he said. And he was threatening, and now brilliant Achilles, he held up his long shadow spear, the ash, the Pelian ash spear in fact. And now it was Asteropaeus. He got up with a spear in both hands because he's ambidextrous. Now, with one of the spears, he hit Achilles right in the middle of the perfectly round shield, but it did not break through the shield, no, because the gods' golden gifts protected Achilles. Everyone remember? He's got armor from Hephaestus, it's really badass. Okay. Now, the spear from his right hand, though, it hit Achilles. It hit Achilles right on the right forearm. That's a lot of rights, too many, I'm sorry. And there was a black cloud of blood now that erupted as it grazed his skin, but the spear then, she passed right over and stuck into the earth, even though it really wanted to get a good taste of Achilles' flesh.
You think through them at the same time, or one after another?
I don't, you know, there's a thing called the Zelinsky effect, and you can't actually do two simultaneous actions at once in text, so this is how we've got to show it. Okay. Next, it was Achilles that threw his long spear. Yes, he did. And he was really dying to kill Asteropaeus. But he missed! He did! It went right over him! It went right over him, and it fixed right into the middle of the riverbank, and it went in all the way halfway up the spear shaft. Yep, yeah. So now the son of Peleus, Achilles, he was rushing at him after drawing his sharp sword from beside his thigh. And now Asteropaeus, he's trying to pull Achilles' spear out of the riverbank so that he can use it, right? So 3 3 times now. He's trying and trying to get the spear out of the bank, but 3 times his force completely fails him. And on the 4th time, as he's trying, he's bending over it, he's trying to break the spear. Well, that's when Achilles came close to him and just robbed him of his life. Yep. Stabbed him in the belly. He stabbed him in the belly, right in the belly button. And then all of his guts poured out onto the earth, and darkness covered his eyes as he kind of gasped out his last breath. And then Achilles rushed right over and started to strip the armor from his chest, and he bragged over him, and his words flew now. Lie there like this. You know, it's pretty hard, even for the kids of rivers to fight against the kids of mighty Zeus. Because you say your family's from a river, right? Yeah, but I say that my family comes from the race of mighty Zeus. Because my dad was Peleus, right? He's the one who had me as a man to rule over many Myrmidons, and his dad was Iacchos. And Iacchos' dad? Zeus. So just how they say that Zeus is more powerful than everything, well, than rivers, then the family of Zeus is more powerful than the family of rivers, right? I mean, we're talking about powerful. Achelous, who's the most powerful river ever. I don't know if you've heard of it, but super powerful, right? It's not strong enough to face up against the sons of Kronos. What about ocean? Did you know that was a river? Well, it is, and it can't go up against Zeus either, even though it has every river coming from it, and every sea, and every spring, and every deep dug well. They all come from ocean, but even ocean is terrified of the terrible lightning and thunder of the son of Kronos when he cracks open the sky with it. So that's what Achilles said. And then, you know that spear? He just pulled it right out of the bank. Wasn't no thing. And he left Asteropaeus lying there now, having robbed him of his life. Now he was lying there in all of the sands. He was covered in the black water, and that's when the eels and the fish went to work all around him, devouring him. You like this part, don't you?
Go on.
Eating all of the fat that was around his kidneys.
So specific.
There's a lot. I don't think it's very healthy to have fat around your kidneys, but there you go. And now Achilles, he went on among all of the Paeonians who were wearing their horse-haired helmets. Horse-haired helmets. I can never get that one. Horse-haired helmets. And they were all running through the eddies of the river because they were terrified now, because they had seen their best man in battle go down at the hands of the sharp sword of Achilles. And Achilles, well, now he killed Thersilochus and Medon and Astypulus, and he killed Thrasios, and he killed Ainios and Nasos and Ophelestes, and now he would have killed even more of the Paeonians, except finally it was the river, Xanthos. Xanthos, he was so mad, and he made himself look like a man, and from out of his waters his deep voice came. Oh, Achilles, you might be so powerful, you might be more unholy than any other man, and the gods are always defending you. But, I mean, come on. If the son of Kronos has given it to you to kill all of these Trojans, can't you do it away from me? I mean, can't you drive these atrocities out onto the plain? I mean, look at me. All my lovely streams are just full of corpses. I can't send my waters out into the shining sea now. I'm all clogged up with corpses. Who you killed completely. So come on and leave me a be, because I'm really befuddled over here.
Leave me a bee.
Leave me be.
Oh, bee.
Do you mean like leave me a bumblebee? No. Not that bee. Now fast-footed Achilles answered, and he was like, everything's gonna be like you say, Scamandros. But I'm not going to stop killing the Trojans, not until I have fit all of them, shut them into their city, until I have tried out Hector, whether he beats me down or I beat him down. So that's what he said, and now he rushed at the Trojans like he was a demon. And that's when the river, Scamandrio, said to Phoebus Apollo, and his words flew. He's like, "Oh, Papoi, silver shooter, son of Zeus, have you completely forgotten that counsel that he gave you, that advice that he said when he said you were supposed to stand beside the Trojans and defend the Trojans all the way until the sun sets, until the evening comes and shades all of the fertile fields?" That's what he said, but Achilles, spear-famous Achilles, he was just rushing back through the middle of the streams and now trying to get away. But that's when the river, he stirred up a huge wave. And he started boiling all of his streams up. And now he pushed out all of the corpses. He pushed them out onto the banks of the river. I mean, and there were a lot of corpses, right? These were all of the bodies that Achilles had left. And then he did this, pushing them out onto the land, bellowing like a bull. So I don't know how that sounds. And then they're all coming out. And then what does he do with the living guys? He takes them into the water. And he hides them in his eddying streams. He hides them underneath his waves to save them. I don't know how that works. They've got little air bubbles. I don't know. Okay, and that is when he then creates this huge wave that he could rush against Achilles. And he pushes it down. His whole stream's now falling on Achilles' shield. So now Achilles, even though he's trying to hold fast, he can't hold fast with his feet. Now he's being pushed down. And he grabs hold of this massive elm tree that's growing on the bank of the river. Achilles grabs hold of it, and he actually uproots the whole damn thing. And he puts all of it, with all of its close-set branches, into the river so that he completely stops the river flowing. He's damming up the river. Achilles is. I mean, it's kind of badass. And then he tries once again to get out of the swirling river so that he can get up onto the bank and into the plain and run away on his fast feet, because he's terrified. I mean, he's fighting with a river. But still, the great god will not stop from his battle fury. And now, against Achilles, he starts up this black, peaking wave, so that he can stop brilliant Achilles' work, so that he can defend the Trojans from the Loigos. But the son of Peleus, now he's able to get away just as far as you can throw a spear. Just that far. I mean, he's got swoops. He's got swoops like a black eagle has got swoops. And the black eagle, just so you know, is the fastest and the strongest of all birds. And that's now the kind of swoop that he had, that Achilles had as he got out of the river, but it wasn't enough. Now the river came after him, streaming with a great, great uproar. It was like when there's a man who's an irrigator. You know, he likes to irrigate, and he is just taking this water from a Blackwater spring because he wants to have it feed all of his plants and all of his fruit. And he's got a pickaxe in one hand, and he's throwing out these big stones and making his little channel, and all the pebbles are starting to get disturbed by the rushing water. But then all of a sudden, it hits a slope, and the water starts to rush a bit faster, and all of a sudden it overtakes the irrigator. I mean, the man who is actually leading the water. I know. But that's exactly how it was with Achilles. Because now there was always a great wave of water that was coming on top of him. Always. And as fast as he was. Why? Because gods are more powerful than men. Okay, so now in as many directions as fast-footed, brilliant Achilles could rush, everywhere he would try to take a stand and turn back. Everywhere he would go and try to see if all of the gods who held heaven were now chasing after him. But every single time, the river would take this huge wave and just crash it down on his shoulders from above. Now Achilles was leaping up with his feet. He was trying as hard as he could to get away from the river. But the river was just beating him down, was completely wearing out his knees, was starting to wash away all of the ground from underneath his feet. And Achilles looked up at the wide heaven and he groaned, "Father Zeus, I mean, isn't any one of the gods gonna pity me and come and save me from this river?" You know, out of all of the heavenly gods, the one that I blame the most is my mother. That's right. My mom. She's the one who bewitched me with lies when she said it was going to be Phoebus Apollo's fast arrows that killed me beneath the wall of Troy. You know? Well, it's going to happen. But honestly, I would have liked to have been killed by Hector. You know, I hear that he's the best of all the people that grew up around here. And then it would have been a really good man killing and a really good man killed. But instead, I've got to face this sad death here at the hands of a river, like I'm some little kid who leads pigs around and then tries to cross a river when it's swollen with winter rain and I get washed away. You get it. That's what he said. But right away now, Poseidon and Athena, they came down and they stood next to him. And they made themselves look like men as they both took his hands, which is a really cute image if you think about it. And it was Poseidon the Earthshaker was the first to speak, and he was like, "Son of Peleus, now don't be too scared and don't run away too much, because we too are such helpers that have come here by the consent of Zeus, me and Pallas Athena. So, now, it is not your fate for the river to beat you down, but he will stop soon, and you will see it yourself. But still you have to listen to us. If you will listen to us, to our counsel, now you cannot stop your hands from your battle fury. Not until you have shut all of the Trojans up back in the famous walls of Iliad, any one of them who actually escapes you. And then only when you have killed Hector, then you can go back to your ships. We are going to grant you all of this to brag about." So that's what the two of them said, and the two gods then went away again. And now Achilles, he went. I mean, now he was really stirred up by these great commands of the god, and he went across the plain. And, you know, the water was still filling up, though, and the water was full of, like, all this beautiful armor and corpses, full of corpses, the men who'd been cut down. They were floating.
Oh, you took them out.
I don't know. There are more corpses. There's always more corpses. It's the Iliad. And then Achilles, he's trying to jump up onto the plain again with his high knees, and the river is coming, trying to wash away things under him. But now he's got great strength in his chest because Pallas Athena has given him the strength. So Achilles is standing fast. But that just pisses off the river even more. And now the river, he creates this other big, huge wave. And he calls out to his brother, Simois, who's another river, right? And he says, "My dear brother, now with your strength, I think the two of us together, we can stop this savage man, because soon he is going to just sack the whole city of Lord Priam. And I don't think that the Trojans can stand up long against him in battle, but now defend me as quickly as possible, and fill all of your streams with water from your springs, so that now we can stop this savage man with a clatter of logs and of stones. We can stop him who is so powerful, who now is raging like the gods." And you know, I think that it's not going to be his force, it's not going to be his beautiful looks, it's not even going to be that awesome armor. I don't think any of that's going to do him any good at all. Once we cover him down on the floor of the harbor, once I heap 10,000 layers of sand and silt on top of him, then there will be so much heaped upon him that the Achaeans won't even know where to look for his bones. And that will be his tombstone. He won't need any other grave marker, not when the Achaeans bury him. So that's what he said, and once again stirred up all of his high waters into a wave. Now he's bubbling with foam and blood and corpses in this huge flowing wave from the Zeus fallen river. It seizes up Achilles, and Achilles, the son of Peleus, is just taken up, and now all of a sudden it's Hera. Hera is terrified that the river is actually going to sweep Achilles away, and so right away she calls out to her son Hephaestus, "My son, Hephaestus, you who has a disability in your feet, it's time for you to go now, because we think that you would make quite a match in battle against this river, Xanthos. So go now as quickly as possible and show off all of your many flames. Meanwhile, I am going to cause a great savage squall to come from the sea that will come from the west wind and the south wind, and I will bring it burning fire over the heads of the Trojans and all of their beautiful armor, and I want you to go down, and I want you to burn all of the trees along the banks of the river, and I want you to set fire to the river himself. And I don't want you to stop from your fury. No, not with gentle words. Don't let those turn you back. Not even with curses. Don't stop your battle fury until you hear me screaming out. That's when you can hold back your weariless fire." So that's what Hera said. And Hephaestus, right away, he went down and got his divine fire ready. And first he set fire to the whole plain, and he burned up all of the corpses that were there. I mean, there were a lot there that Achilles had killed. And then the whole plain was completely scorched, and he stopped the river's shining water. And then it was like when the north wind comes in the autumn and it dries up the garden that has been completely soaked through the whole summer long, and the guy who tends the garden is just so happy because I guess it was really wet. That's exactly how it was now, how Hephaestus scorched the whole plain. He turned all of his flames now onto the river itself. Now he burned all of the elm trees and the willow trees and the tamarisk. Now he burned the clover and the reeds and the galingale, which is an awesome word and a kind of marsh grass. And now even the eels and the fish, they were all worn out as they were darting here and there in the streams of the river, being worn out by the fiery breath of Hephaestus, super clever Hephaestus. And the river himself, his whole force was burning up, and he finally spoke and called called Hephaestus by name. "Hephaestus, you know that there's no one that can fight against you. No one. I mean, I can't fight against you like this when you're setting me on fire. So just quit it. You know, let brilliant Achilles chase all the Trojans all the way back to the city. Man, what have I got to do with any of this?" That's what he said, and he was all being burnt up by the fire. And now all of his lovely streams were starting to boil. But it was like when Well, it was like when there's a cauldron, and you take some dry sticks and you set a fire, and then you put a cauldron over it, and then the water starts to heat up and it becomes to a boil, and then you put a pig over it, and then all of the pig that was fed well, and all of its fat starts to melt, because we do that all the time. Anyway, it was just like that now, that the river, it was completely on fire, and it was starting to boil, and it couldn't flow forward anymore. Now it just kind of held. And he was being completely worn out by the strength of Hephaestus. And now the river called out to Hera, begging, and his words flew, "Hera, why is your son picking on me like this?" I mean, out of everyone, I am not to blame. I mean, out of all the ones who have helped the Trojans, if you want me to stop, I will stop, but make him stop too. And I will swear this oath that I will never defend the Trojans from their day of destruction. Not even when all of Troy is burning with flaming fire, when it is burning and the warlike sons of the Achaeans burn it to the ground. Right away, the white-armed goddess Hera heard him, and she called out to Hephaestus, and she was like, "Hephaestus, my son, famous, glorious son, you can stop now." You know, I mean, it's really not right, is it, for divine mortals to be beating up another divine mortal, divine immortal? Sorry, I'm totally fucking this up. It's really not right, is it? For a divine god to beat down another divine god because of some mortal? Yeah, that's what she said. And right away, Hephaestus quenched his divine fire, and then the waves of the river flowed back again, and all of its lovely streams. And so that's how Xanthos' battle fury was beaten down. Hey! And they all stopped. And even Hera, as pissed off as she was, she stopped. But among the other gods? Yep, it keeps going. Among the other gods, there was still so much heavy fighting about to start, and it was with a huge clash. Oh my god, because they were divided in two. You know, and the clash, it just echoed over the whole wide earth, and it was like trumpets from heaven in a pre-Christian context. And Zeus, he was just sitting there up on Mount Olympus, and he was super happy now, because Zeus gets off on this kind of thing, that all the gods are coming to fight against one another, and there's terrible fighting amongst them. Yep. So, now no longer did the gods stand far apart from each other, but it was the hide piercer Ares. He was the first to start things off. And he went rushing against Athena, and he was holding his bronze spear in his hand, and he was speaking insults to her. "You dog fly, Athena! Why are you always starting shit among the gods?" "I just started it. I'm starting it right now." "You remember that time that you drove Diomedes, Tydeus' son, against me? Yeah, you loved it, didn't you? And you just had that spear and you pushed it all the way so that it was devouring my beautiful flesh. Yeah, well, now I think I'm gonna make you pay for all those bad things you did to me." That's what he said. And he was trying to stab at her, but he was stabbing the tasseled aegis. And that tasseled aegis is something that not even the lightning of Zeus could beat down, so that wasn't doing much. But that's what blood-stained Ares was trying to do with his big spear. And that's when Athena, she just picked up a rock. She just picked up a rock with her big hand, and let me tell you, this rock, it was lying on the plain. It was black, well, it's okay. It was jagged, we got that, and it was big, and it was actually the kind of rock that the first men, which is obviously a Game of Thrones reference, that the first men put as a boundary marker, and so this was the rock that now Athena picked up as she threw it at Ares, and she hit him right in the neck. Yeah, that hurts, doesn't it? And it loosened his battle courage, and he fell down, and he was stretched out over 7 acres now, and his hair got really dirty. And all of his armor clattered all around him, and Pallas Athena, she was just laughing and laughing, and she went over and she bragged, and she was like, dumbass. So now I guess you forgot how much better I am than you, huh? Yeah? When you try to match your battle fury against mine. I mean, all of this is really just the fault of your mom and her furies. You know she's pretty pissed off, that's Hera, because you left behind the brilliant Achaeans and instead have been defending the haughty Trojans. I can't believe I just said haughty. Nope. Okay. And now she turned her shining eyes away. But that was when Aphrodite, who was the daughter of Zeus, she came down and she was leading Ares away. And here's Ares, and he's groaning so much because there's hardly any life left in him. Of course, there's tons of life left in him because he's God and he can't die. And white-armed goddess Hera saw this, and she said right away to Athena, and her words flew, "Oh, Papoi, Aegis-bearing daughter of Zeus, Atritone, which is the name that I get to use for you and nobody else ever uses for you. Now do you see this dog-fly Aphrodite, and she is leading manslaughtering Ares out of the battle and away from the confusion. Go after her." That's what she said, and Athena did so with pleasure, rushing after, and she went up to Aphrodite and just hit her really hard in the chest. Boob shot. Right? And you know that hurts. Oh. And so then totally loosened her limbs, and her heart was like, ugh. And then she fell. So now both Ares and Aphrodite are down. And now Athena, she gets to brag some more. And she's like, man, look at these two. I mean, this is the kind of helpers that the Trojans have, really? Really? These are the ones that are trying to fight against the Achaeans? You know, the kind of allies that you get, like Aphrodite was a great army ally when she went down to help Ares against my battle fury. You know, that went so well. Yeah, we should have stopped fighting a long time ago, the first time that we sacked Iliad, the well-built city. You remember that?
Nope.
Me neither. That's what Athena said, and white-armed Hera was just smiling. But this is when Apollo now said to the Earthshaker Poseidon, and it was like, now Poseidon.
Other way around.
Fuck. Thank you, Alex. This is what happens when the accusative is early in the line.
You can see this in the paper. We'll pass it around.
So, the Earthshaker Poseidon said to Apollo, Phoebus, you know, I don't think that it's really right for you and me to stand apart like this when all this shit's going down. I mean, if we were to go back to Dad's house, Zeus with his, you know, bronze floor, and we didn't do any of the fighting, I think that we might feel kind of embarrassed about that. So, why don't you start things off, since you're younger. I'm older, I know more things. I'm gonna try to get you to start now. I'm gonna call you dumbass. Dumbass! I mean, don't you even remember all the shit that the two of us have gone through outside of Iliad? I mean, the two of us out of all of the gods. No? You don't remember? It's not ringing any bells? There was this time when Zeus decided, for reasons we don't know, that we had to be servants for a year to Laomedon, right? Yeah, except there was a contract, there was a salary. We went for that year and we worked, and I built an awesome wall.
Good.
I mean, it was beautiful.
Still is.
Beautiful and big all around the city of Troy so that that city would be unbreakable. And you? You know, you were up on Mount Ida, on the shoulders of Mount Ida with the cows, those twisty foot cows, doing the thing, you know, you gotta take care of those. And that's what we were doing. And when the whole seasons had gone through, delighting man, the year had passed, where was our salary? Yeah. Instead, this terrible guy Laomedon, terrible Laomedon, he broke his contract with us. And then he threatened us. He threatened to send us away.
Here's the accusative. Find it.
He threatened that he was going to tie up our feet, tie up our hands, that he was going to sell us to some far-off islands, that he was going to cut off our ears with bronze. I know, it's gross. You know? And then the two of us, we just had to go back. I mean, we were so pissed off in our heart because we never got our salary. I mean, the salary, it was promised, it was never given. And you, Apollo, you seem to just do favors for these people left and right. Oh, yeah. You're not going to help any of the rest of us gods kill the Trojans, kill all of their wives and children. If I put it that way, it's a little harsh. And the far-shooter Apollo, the Lord, answered him and was like, Earthshaker, you know, I mean, you make me really feel like an asshole when you say this. Like, when you talk about us fighting like this over the sake of mortals, you know how mortals are. They're like leaves. They're like leaves that one day are so full of fire and so full of life, feeding off the fruit of the earth, and then the next day they are withered away and lifeless. So let's just stop fighting, right? I mean, we can just let the mortals fight it out. So that's what he said, and he turned away again because Apollo, he didn't want to fight with his uncle. I mean, I don't know if he was too modest or too ashamed, but whatever you want to do with the Eidos there. Okay, but now his sister, Artemis, we're almost through the gods, it's getting there, people. Artemis came and told off Apollo. Now Artemis, she's savage and she's loud and this is her insult and she is like, are you running away now, fire worker? Huh? I mean, you're gonna give Poseidon all of the stuff to brag about even though he didn't do anything at all? I mean, you are such a dumbass. It's like that bow that you have is like, it's like made of wind. That's how good it is. I mean, how many times did I have to listen to you in Dad's house just like, blah, 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 in front of all the gods. I'm going to beat Poseidon. I'm going to fight against him. That's what she said. And Apollo didn't say anything. Oh, I'm sorry, Alex. But now it was actually Zeus's wife who was super pissed off, Hera, and now she came and she told off the Arapora Artemis. And her insult was like this. Artemis, how do you think you're going to match up against my battle fury? You're going to stand up against me? You know it is very difficult to match me, even if you've got a bow, even if Zeus has made you powerful among women, a lion among women, even if Zeus has granted it to you to kill all of the wild beasts. You know, I think that it's better if you just stick to those beasts in the mountain, to those savage deer. Yeah. Fight with something that you can actually fight against. Otherwise, if you try to match with me, you are going to be beaten down, and then you will know how much better I am than you. And you will not try to match your battle fury against me again. That's what Hera said, and now Hera grabbed hold of both of Artemis's arms with one hand, and with her other hand, she stripped the bow from her shoulders, and she hit her around the ears with it. And here's Artemis like trying to twist and get away, and she's crying, and all of her arrows are flying out everywhere onto the ground. Yeah, I know. And then finally crying, she runs away. Artemis runs away now like a little dove, a dove that escapes from a hawk, even though the hawk is chasing it, but somehow it is not that hawk's day to kill the dove. So the dove gets up into some hollow in the cleft in the cliffs. That's how Artemis ran away as she was crying. And it was Agrifontes, Hermes now. He saw all this, I imagine, and he was like, damn. And he said to Leto, who is another wife of Zeus, Leto, you know, I don't really want to fight with you at all. I mean, I've seen that these wives of Zeus give some pretty savage beatings. So why don't you just tell all the gods that you kicked my ass, and then you can have something to brag about, and that could be that. Right? So sensible. So many fights could be better that way. That's what he said, and Leto went and got the curved bow and picked it up and picked up all of the arrows that were scattered everywhere around the ground, and she handed it back to her crying daughter Artemis. And now Artemis went all the way back up to Mount Olympus and to the bronze-floored house of Zeus. And that was where she went to her father and sat at his knees, and she was crying. She was crying so hard, in fact, that her whole ambrosial dress was quaking with it. And Zeus just picked her up and was kind of laughing at her a little bit, and was like, who out of all of the immortals now did this to you? I mean, so thoughtlessly. They did this as though you had done something wrong. And then Zeus is like, ha ha ha. And now the loud, well-crowned Artemis answered and was like, it was your wife. She hit me, the white-armed Hera. And she just is always trying to get so much strife and conflict among all the gods. Anyway, that's how the two of them were talking to each other. And now Phoebus Apollo, he went down to Ilion because he was really worried. He was worried that now the well-built wall was not going to hold, that now, beyond fate, the Danaans today were going to sack the city. And all of the other gods went back up towards Olympus, and some of them were just so pissed off. And some of them, well, you know, they had won the kudos. So they all went and sat around their cloud-gathering father. Meanwhile, Achilles. Meanwhile, Achilles, he was still killing all the Trojans. He was killing all the Trojans and their whole hoofed horses. Now it was like when there is smoke that comes up and reaches into the wide heaven from a city that is on fire, when the gods have turned all of their wrath against that city, when they have placed so many troubles, so much hard labor on that city. That's how Achilles was, with all of the troubles and the labor that he placed upon the Trojans. And it was the old man Priam. Priam saw him from up on the tower. Priam saw huge Achilles and recognized him, and he saw all of the Trojans now running in confusion in front of him, and the Trojans had no courage at all now. And the old man, groaning, he went down from the tower down to the earth, and he gave the commands now to the glorious gate guards, and he said, now open the gates! Now you have to open the gates and let all of these people run into the city, because Achilles is coming after them and driving this confusion, and soon I think there will be the Loigos. After we have shut everyone into the walls, then we can close the well-fitted gates together again, because I am scared that this destructive man might jump inside the city walls themselves. That's what he said, and they threw open the gates and pushed open the bolts, and now the light poured into the city through the open gates, and Apollo, he came down rushing to defend the Trojans against the Loigos. And the Trojans, they went running straight into the walls, straight into the city now. They were dried out with thirst. They were so covered in dust from the plain as they ran for their lives, and Achilles was always violently coming after them with the spear. Now there was a kind of madness that had taken hold of his heart. Now he was raging to win all of the kudos. And now the sons of the Achaeans, beyond even fate, they would have sacked high Troy. Except that Phoebus Apollo now sent out brilliant Agenor, who was the son, the blameless, good son of Antenor. And he threw great courage into his heart, and he himself went and stood next to him. Apollo did, so that he could defend him. He could defend him from the heavy hands of death. And he did this while leaning casually on an oak tree and wrapping himself in a lot of mist. Which is what you do. Meanwhile, it was Agenor who saw Achilles coming, and now his heart was kind of raging in every direction, and he was upset, Agenor, and he spoke to himself, "Oi, moi. Okay, so if I run away from very powerful Achilles, when all of these others are just being driven in confusion by him and are completely out of their wits, I mean, he still might take me. He might catch me and kill me, slit my throat like I'm a coward. And then, if I actually run away, if I leave all these who are running there and I go back towards the river, well, maybe I can make it to the foothills of Mount Ida. Maybe I can hide out in some bushes. And then I can wait until the evening time and I can take a bath in the river and just wash off all my sweat, and then I can just make my way back to Iliad. You know, that would work. Except that Achilles might see me running back out across the plain, and he might still catch me because I know that his feet are fast. I mean, I might not be able to avoid death at all. This man is just too powerful. He is too strong, and I don't want to go against him. But you know what? I mean, my spear might be able to tear his flesh too. They say he only has one life. They say that he's a mortal man too. So, it's just that Zeus, the son of Kronos, is always giving him the kudos. That's what he said now, and he resolved to stand fast against Achilles. And he roused up all the courage in his own heart to fight and to do battle. Now, he was like some leopard, a leopard that comes out of the thick jungle and is willing to fight, doesn't have a single fear in her heart, doesn't have any kind of notion of running away. She will stand fast, even if she's wounded, even if somebody hits her. Even if somehow she has been wrapped around the spear, she will not stop from her courage, not until she faces off against one of them or she is beaten down. That's now how the shining son of Antenor, Agenor, he was not going to run away. Now he was going to try out Achilles. And so he stood there with his perfectly round shield held out in front of him, and he was shaking his ash spear. And he cried out loudly, "Achilles, you hoped today that you were going to sack our city, that you were going to sack Troy. But there are still many pains to suffer for Troy. There are many of us who are brave, who are still inside the walls, who will defend her. We will defend our parents. We will defend our wives. We will defend our children. We will defend Ilion. And you will reach your fate here. It doesn't matter how strong you are, how awesome of a warrior you may be." That's what he said.
Cool.
I know, right? And he let his spear go from his heavy hands. And he hit him.
Yeah, the shin.
He hit him in his shin guard. But the shin guards were just made, remember, a couple weeks ago. They were just made out of tin, and it was the god that made them. And so, well, there was just a terrible clanging sound as it hit. And right away, the bronze that was rushing towards it bounced back again. Which is too bad, really. Because, once again, the god's gifts protect Achilles. We know that story. And now it was Achilles that rushed out against Agenor, god like Agenor. And Phoebus Apollo is not going to let him get the glory, though. No more kudos for Achilles. Apollo just snatches him up old Agenor wraps him in some mist, yeah, you know the mist, and then quietly puts him down so that he can make his way back to Ilion like it's no thing. And this is where Apollo really does something, because he tricks Achilles into leaving all of the other people behind. Now, Apollo, he makes himself look exactly like Agenor. Exactly like Agenor. And then he puts himself in front of Achilles' feet so that Achilles chases after him with his fast feet. And now Apollo, as Agenor, he runs back along the banks of the Scamandros, and he's always staying just a little bit in front of Achilles so that Achilles keeps thinking, I mean, Achilles is completely bewildered, right? He keeps thinking he's going to catch this guy. Yeah. That means that all of the other Trojans get to run away. All of them now run happily towards the city. All of them now fill the whole city and are shut in its gates. Now not one of them would dare to stand outside of the city or the city walls and wait and see which one of them had escaped or which one of them had died in battle. Now all of them were just too happy to run into the city. I mean, whomever feet and knees could save. So now they all got into the city and were there like deer who had run away, frightened deer, and they washed off all of the sweat, and they finally got something to drink, and they all leaned against the beautiful walls. And the Achaeans outside the walls, now they sloped all of their shields over their shoulders. And Hector, well, deadly fate fixed Hector outside of Ilion, outside of the Skyan gates. Meanwhile, Phoebus Apollo said to Achilles, finally, son of Peleus, why are you chasing me like this? You know, you're just a guy, right? And I'm an ambrosial god. I mean, have you not recognized yet that I'm a god? And still you just keep raging after me. But what about those Trojans that you were so worried about? Did you know that they're all now safely inside the city? Did you know? Because you just bent out here following me, and you know you can't kill me because that's never my fate because I'm a god. Oh, and Achilles was so upset. And he answered him, he was like, oh, you are the most destructive of all gods. You have really messed me up here, far worker. Yeah, you've really messed me up. You turned me away from the wall like this, and you stole great kudos from me, and you saved all these people so easily. You know why? It's because you have no fear of payback in the future. Yeah, but you know I would pay you back if I could pay you back. That's what Achilles said, and now as he was thinking the great thoughts, he ran back towards the city. He ran now like a prize-winning racehorse with his chariot runs. That's how the fast feet and knees carried Achilles. And it was Priam. The old man Priam was the first to see him with his eyes. The first to see Achilles as he was rushing forward now. He was shining like a star. He was shining like the star that comes out in autumn, that, you know, it is the brightest of all of the stars that shine in the dead of night. It is the brightest, but it is also a bad sign. They call it Orion's dog, and it brings terrible fevers to mortals. That's now what Achilles looked like as he shone in all of his bronze as he raced across the plain. And the old man Priam, as he saw him, he lifted up his hands over his head and he just beat his head with his hands. And he called out now to his son Hector. He begged him. He stretched out his hands to him. He said, my son Hector, don't stay out there. Don't try to face the son of Peleus. You know that he is much better than you. Don't be a hard ass. You know, I wish that the gods loved this man as much as I did, because then soon the dogs and the vultures would feed on him outside of our city, and then some of this awful grief would be gone from my guts. He has taken so many of my sons, so many and so excellent young men. He has killed them. He has sold them off to far-off islands. Even now, I can't see two of them, like Chaon and Polydorus, whom Lauthoe bore me. She is powerful among women. I don't see them living among all the Trojans that have come inside the walls, but if they are still living among the army, then I will give great ransom for them of bronze and of gold, because Altes gave much money with Lauthoe when he sent it. But if they are already down in the shadowy house of Hades, well, then that is going to be a great grief for me and a great grief for their mother. But that grief will be so short-lived compared to the kind of grief that all of the people feel for you, Hector. If you die, if you are beaten down by Achilles, don't hand over this kudos to him. Don't lose your own life. You can defend the Trojans and the Trojan women with their long dresses from inside the walls. At least take pity on me. I am old, but I have not gone senile yet. I know how bad fated I am, how bad lucked I am, how the son of Kronos has worn me down in this old age. And I have seen such terrible things. My sons have been killed. My daughters have been dragged off. All of the marriages that have been torn apart, the children that have been thrown to the ground in the hateful battle. My daughters-in-laws dragged away by the sons of the Achaeans. And me last of all. My dogs, they will eat me in my doorway. Someday after I am struck down or stabbed by the bronze, those dogs that I raised at my own table, they will drink my blood before they restlessly go and lay down on the front porch. You know, there's something right about a young man when he dies. I mean, there's something right about it, you know? Even when he's torn open by the bronze and he lies there, he is still beautiful. But an old man, when the dogs have been at his gray hair and his gray beard and his genitals, when he's dead, that's just the saddest thing that anyone can ever see. So that's what he said. But Hector's heart didn't listen. And on the other side of Priam, it was Hector's mom was standing there, and she opened up her dress, and she held out one of her breasts in her hand. And she said to him, calling out to her son, "Hector, my son, please respect me. Think of this and take pity. If ever I gave you the breast, if ever I quieted your troubles, remember these things and come and defend the city from inside the wall. Do not stand up against this man. Otherwise, if you are beaten down, then I can never mourn you. You, my sapling, who I gave birth to, I cannot lament you in bed, me or your wife who has so many gifts. Instead, the fast dogs will eat you beside the Argive ships." And that's what she said. And Hector's heart wouldn't listen. Hector was just raging now to stand against Achilles. He was waiting there like a snake up in the mountains, in a little hidey hole. And the snake is just like soaking itself in poisons, which I think is so interesting. Like, do the Greeks think that they soak themselves in poisons to be poisonous? And then they're like, I'm all full now, like charging your phone. When the terrible anger has come on this little snake as he waits in his hidey hole for some guy to bite. Yeah, that's how Hector was waiting. Hector was waiting, and he had such a terrible battle fury now that he held in his heart to stand against Achilles. But still now he took off his boss shield and he leaned it against the wall. And he spoke to his own heart as he waited. Oi moi, me. You know, if I went back into the walls and the city right now, it would be Polydamas. He would be the first one to tell me off. Because Polydamas, he was the one that ordered me to take all the Trojans back into that city that night, that terrible night that Achilles first came back. And I didn't listen, even though it would have been a lot better. And me, through my own recklessness, now I've killed so many of my people. Oh God, and I would feel so ashamed. Rid of all the Trojans and the Trojan women with their long dresses. If someone who was even worse than me would come up and say, oh, there goes Hector. Yeah. He was so reckless, he just killed all of his people. No. It is so much better to just stand against Achilles than to face that. Either to be killed by him or to kill him gloriously in front of the city. But maybe I could take off my shield and my heavy helmet, and I could lean my spear against this wall, and I could go up to him, and I could offer him Helen. I could offer him Helen and all that stuff that Paris first brought in those ships to Troy. I mean, that's what started all this shit. I could give it all back, and I could just hand it to the sons of Atreus, and I could, whatever else is in the city, I could give it, and I could swear a great oath that there will be nothing hidden in the city afterwards, that we will give it all to them to divvy it up. Why am I talking to myself like this? You know, I could take off my armor and I could go to him, and he might not respect me. He might not pity me at all. He'll just kill me like I'm some woman there, naked, wearing no armor. You know, now there's just no way that me and Achilles, that we could whisper to one another behind some rock, behind some tree, like a young man and a young woman whisper to one another, like a young man and a young woman whisper to one another. So better just fight as soon as possible, and we'll see who the Olympian gives something to brag about to. That's what he said. And he stirred up all the courage in his heart, and he stood fast, waiting for Achilles. And here comes Achilles. Now he sees Achilles, and he looks like man-slaughtering war of God. Fuck! Snake of a tail! God of war, Enyalus. Now Achilles, the way that he is shining, he looks like the rays of a flaming inferno. He looks like the rays of the rising sun. And when Hector sees him, he starts to shake. And now Hector, he can't stand to stay. Fucking runs. I mean, he runs. And he leaves the gates behind. And Achilles rushes after him. Now Achilles is rushing after him like a hawk up in the mountains that is the fastest of all of the birds, and it rushes after a dove who is trying to get away, and she's swooping down below, and the hawk just keeps coming after her again and again. I mean, that hawk's heart, his whole heart is compelling him to catch the dove. That's how Achilles now was always running straight on. And Hector was running along the wall as fast as his knees could carry him. Now they ran past the wagon road, and they ran past the lookout point. They ran past the fig tree that's always caught in the wind. And they ran past those two springs. You know, there are two springs that feed the whirling Scamandros. And one of them is always so hot, it's like there's steam and smoke always coming from it, even though like it was actually on fire. That's how hot the spring is. And the other spring is cold. I mean, even in the summer, it runs like hail, or like chilled snow, or like the crystals of ice that form on cold water. That's how that cold spring ran. And right next to the rocks, right there, that's where the beautiful stone washing troughs were. That's where the beautiful Trojan women and the wives and daughters of all of the Trojans would always come and wash the clothes. They would come and wash the clothes until they were shining. But that was before, when there was peacetime. That was before the sons of the Achaeans came.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for coming once again. You're all wonderful. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Shout outs first of all to Baldepa and Colin for... Big thank you to this week's director, Kat Lemieux, who prepared this whole set. Now, a special announcement for next week. Some of you might have seen the papers we've left on the tables. We won't be here next week, but the show does go on. We will be at Bar Le Coin Social, which is in Galerie de Parc, right down the street over here. So please come back next week for Rosa Ruby Glaberman's Week.
Yeah!